Hey, Planeswalkers, welcome to today's episode. We got something special for you here today. It's a collaboration video, but we got a special guest, Dafore, here, and I'm excited to introduce him to not only us as a community, but the broader community that he is a part of with Magic and does a lot of things, an awesome contribution as well. So appreciate you tuning in, Dafore, and everyone else. We are going to cover off on a couple things, so you guys can absolutely navigate to the description down below with the timestamps, and his information will be there where you guys can follow his content and check him out as well. We're going to cover off on some of the standard meta, some of the changes, but before we do that, we're going to get to know Dafore a little bit more, because between us, he's been one of my secret weapons on Limited, and I know he's excited to talk to you folks about that here today as well. And then we'll talk about probably some of the changes in the meta when it comes to Strixhaven, and I know we got a few things to chat about there as well. So looking forward to today's conversation. I've done enough talking already. I'm going to kick it over to Dafore here to introduce himself. And obviously he knows that he's won me over as the king of Limited. I don't care what you guys say. So go ahead, bud. Let's hear a little bit about your story and how you came to Magic.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for inviting me to this thingy, to your channel. I love what you're doing here. First of all, I really love your content. Really love your I think your videos are actually really educational. Like all the you're putting so much work to basically present the meta to people, and that's helping newer and even more experienced players a lot. Plus, it's keeping people just up to date with current state of the game.
Appreciate that.
There's that. You already told so many things about me, but too many compliments basically. But
no, you're just humble.
I'll take them. All right, so about me, I guess. My name is Dafore. So I would say I'm a Magic streamer. That's my contribution to Magic, and that's my current focus in right now. What I try to do in Magic. So you can find me on Twitch TV/Dafore. I'm trying to do some YouTube stuff, but it's not nearly as good as yours. But I'm gonna get there one day.
Takes a lot of practice, man. Just like streaming. So no.
Yeah, I like to basically see myself as playing competitive Magic, and then if people enjoy that and they enjoy watching, they can learn something out of that. I'm not that good with entertaining people, but I stick to what I think I know or what I do best. So if anyone takes interest in that, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think that's great. I don't think I'm funny. My wife would say I'm the least funny person in the world. So I kind of go the same route as you. I like to just produce things and if people enjoy the competitive content, I'm right on board. So what from your streaming perspective, what got you into Magic and what got you into kind of streaming? I'm just curious on your story there a little bit.
I started Magic playing at I don't know, age 13 or something, and
wow.
Nice. I'm 32 now, so it's been almost 2 decades. But I started basically with Pokemon, and then I naturally at some convention or whatever, some employee there or whatever, some representative for Magic products got me into Magic basically. Actually, my father was with me, so we both started playing, but then my father just never stick with it. And then now I'm playing since then, with pauses like everyone. But yeah,
that's cool.
I never really can. It's basically an addiction by this point, but I can never get rid of it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you go to for enjoyment or just also the repetition that you've been doing so long, and I think that the constant change brings us back as well. Now, question, do you still have all your Pokemon cards, and are they first edition?
I've never been into the competitive, because I think I was too young for competitive aspect, and it didn't really reach, the tournaments didn't really reach our country. So we basically just collected just random packs. I didn't really play that much.
Yeah,
I just collected them more or less. I
that's
knew how
cool.
to play, but I had nobody to play with, basically.
Yeah, now you got
Uh,
everyone to play with in the arena for Magic. So there's an
yeah,
endless supply of people.
more like Pokemon. Like when we're talking Pokemon, like I never really got to like a tournament or anything. That just wasn't a thing. And here in Slovenia, from where I come from.
Yeah, I can't imagine. It's totally different experience. So Pokemon got you into Magic. Then what set was the first one that you played, and then what kind of got you to thinking like I just want to start streaming to people as well? Because I'm curious on that because I know you're a competitive player, and so even a lot of competitive players don't always like to stream, and I like to focus once in a while, and I don't like to be on camera, and I like to game a little bit, instead of, like you said, some of the entertainment stuff. But curious on what kind of that progression was for you.
Um, I'll start like basically backwards. So like the last thing that like this basically the streaming part, which is like the newest thing I do in Magic right now, I guess. It happened basically because of the COVID situation, because I was stuck at home and bored. I never really saw myself like as an entertainer or like recording myself for the purposes of people watching or whatever. But I actually enjoy it more than I thought I would. So then I decided I'm gonna like proceed that route maybe more than I'm still doing a lot of competitive stuff, but like I'm actually focused more on streaming now, like really way more than before. But I was doing like I don't know, competitive Magic for like what is now at 2013 or something, or 2014 till basically till like I did like GPs, like traveled like basically on a monthly or
Yeah.
even more like on a monthly basis to like GP. And it's really easy to travel to GPs in Europe actually, because everything is so close together and you can just take a train or something
Yeah.
and go to another country for the GP. So that was like basically my main focus in Magic. But then obviously the GP stopped, and I had to get busy some other way. So I started streaming, and it was a whole new challenge for me, because I was never a tech guy. I didn't even have a proper computer or anything. I had to build it from the scratch. So I had to like Google everything,
Wow.
call the people, and then I built like a computer, because that was the cheapest way to do it. Like if I just like I had like it was such a big difference in price, at least here from where I come from,
Yeah.
that I decided I'm gonna build it myself and get into this tech stuff. So
That's
I'm still I'm
cool.
still I'm still learning on that part.
That's very cool. Well, what he's not telling you guys is that he seamlessly got all this stuff to work with me, and I was the one that was having the tech challenges. So don't, again, humble Dafore over here. That's really cool, man. I would relate, myself in the COVID situation. I think that's great to hear. Certainly myself as an extrovert too. It's a great way to connect with people like yourself and share, and stay connected in kind of these challenging times that we're facing together. So I
But
appreciate
that's
that.
right. You started also, and when the COVID kicked in, right?
I did.
Somewhere about that time, because I remember when your first videos came out. Like I was amazed back then, but now it's just getting better.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But that's, I guess, the natural process. Everybody like is looking forward to improve, and that's how it should be anyhow. Like in Magic or in like video making or like any field of like life, whatever.
Yep. You always try and be the better person tomorrow, right? What can you do on the
Yeah.
improvement and those things? And I think that's what kind of drives us forward as well. So that's very cool. So in terms of the GP tournaments and stuff before, I don't know, have you ever top eight at one of those GPs and stuff? I don't think and pardon me if I'd
I
seen that
top I
somewhere,
top
but
rated two GPs,
that's cool,
but
man.
that's it. Like I should have probably top rated more if I don't know. I tried hard like back in the days, but I think if I had the mentality back then that I have now, I would try like I would I don't know. I would try harder. Like I basically enjoyed the traveling and stuff probably
Yeah.
more at the start, but would be like I had like great opportunities in Magic. I was like I had a great friend, or I still have a great friend, but he's not playing Magic anymore. He's not into competitive Magic anymore. More probably people know him, Robin Dollar. He's like he was like first at one GP, like played a million PTs and
Wow.
had some really great finishes. And he's from my country, and our country is like small. We live in a different part of the country, but we are like really close friends, and close friends, and we can visit each other. But like I was lucky, he got me into this competitive scene. So I was at one point testing with people like Frank Karsten, Martin Hughes.
That's
I
cool.
was basically in their team, but I mean, I wasn't nearly as good at them, but I got to play with them, so that improved me a lot in Magic.
That's
So that
very
was
cool.
basically it. I should have taken that opportunity more seriously, but I just didn't. So it was a different point in my life, and I was also interested in different things, be like parallel to Magic or whatever.
Yeah. That's really cool. That makes a lot of sense
but
too.
but
So
but it like it gave me like so much knowledge, like unlimited, unconstructed, and like everything, because those guys are like just next level of Magic really, and they are still like that's why they are like just getting better, and they are still like all are still like top 8 now, and all people that started back then, and the team that we had, or I was in for, like I was only there for like 2 PTs or something, and I didn't do really well at that PTs, but like a lot of these people that just started back then and were like the same scrub as I was, they are like now one of the better players in Magic.
yeah. No, it's cool. I think it's also like timing, like you said, where you got to stick with it. I mean, like the meta stuff that we'll talk about here in a little bit is you got to stay on top of it, and the game shifts so much. And I think I know you're going to talk about some of your strategies a little bit later around limited, but I actually started as primarily a limited player myself, so I steered clear of constructed because I was like, if to me some of the best players are limited players, because you can play what you're given and make the best deck no matter what it is, and you can still, even if people pull a bunch of cards, there's still a way to navigate around those decks versus, and it's funny because obviously I make tons of net deck videos and top deck videos. That's what I do daily. And here's the guy that played limited saying, all the top decks, that's what I was steering clear from, and now I do it, right? So it's just kind of funny to see that transition in those stories, and I certainly believe that limited's something that kind of transcends a little bit more over time versus limited, where it does change fairly quickly. But once you kind of build your framework for limited, you can carry that forward with the way that you design how you're played, just like you want to design your mana curve essentially. So that's very cool. Certainly something I've never done. I've almost day 2 to GP, but I haven't. That was more of a. Have you ever played in a? I think they're called the 3-headed giant tournaments or whatever, or team tournaments. That's
Oh yeah,
that's one of the ones I played here in the U.S. So not.
yeah, those are actually really fun. And there was some I don't know if it's called three-headed giant, if we mean the same thing, but it's like basically a team
Yeah,
tournament.
I think it was
Three people
team.
are
I
just
think it was team, not
three
three-headed, but
yeah.
yeah, team.
Like there were some GPs, and they were really fun. Like if you got the right team together, even like just group of friends, even if like like the three of you didn't like have the same skill set or whatever, those things were like one of the better tournaments I ever played.
Yeah, one of my good friends. He doesn't play as much. He still plays once in a while, but we had him design everyone's decks, so we just played them. But we did pretty good. I remember the tournament because I didn't follow a lot of the players. Like I know a lot of those that you listed now, but I remember one of my buddies was big on LSV, and he was there. and so it was a big deal when
So
we
you
saw him.
you got to play with
I didn't play him. I didn't
against
play him. I saw him there. I sat close to him, but he went. I don't. He probably doesn't know who I am, but it's still fun to see those players that you look up to and stuff. So, but very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's interesting, like how you talk about me like I'm some kind of limited guy, and you thought I thought you were like more you were just always doing constructed, but now I see that you're actually were into limited. This is interesting, and I was like I'm actually have better results in constructed than in limited, like throughout my GP history,
Yeah.
and people now kind of like look at me for limited, but that also has to do a lot that I'm like you're doing constructed content. I'm mostly like streaming limited, like 70% of the time I'm just playing limited on stream, because I think that's the like that's when I enjoy Magic the most, like doing drafts and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. That's very cool. So let's maybe let's talk a little bit about the standard meta, and we'll come back to the limited stuff because I think it'll be a good segue into the Strixhaven stuff here. But what are your thoughts? I know you've been obviously you play in the tournaments and things, and I know you talked about the constructed play, and it is funny where how you think of players just given what they're doing, but maybe not what they always do or what they've performed well in the past. What's kind of your thoughts on where things are right now? I know we only got a few days left, maybe a week and a half here. But what do you think's going to be still around maybe, and what you can do around the current meta, and how players should start to prepare a little bit?
Well, I think Throne of Eldraine is not rotating till September, right? So that's gonna stay, and you can just probably like have like 30 of your cards being adventure cards, and Eddie, I guess, the innkeeper, and that can be your deck for the next 3 or 4 months. No, it's more like 4 or 5 months. Like
Yeah.
that's gonna stay. Like this is like what like and Drain was out like more than 1 year ago. I don't know, even 2 years, 1 year, right?
I think it was a year,
Or
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the adventure, like Teamer adventure deck is still around. The Clower got banned, but like the adventure shell and Eddie. So I don't know if Wizards don't do anything about that. Like I think that's still gonna be the strongest deck. Like some version of this adventure shell is gonna be definitely the strongest deck. And currently, it stand out that the most of the people are last time were playing Teamer Adventures. Like
Yep.
3 weeks in a row, Teamer Adventures is performing the best. So that's clearly the best deck in the format. It's not Sultai. It is this the adventure deck right now. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with that. I mean, when I think of what I would play in a tournament, it probably would be Team Returns or Teamer Adventures for sure. And I give a lot of kudos to Arnie piloting the Rogues deck, because essentially he read the meta well, that there wasn't going to be as much heavy aggro, and Rogues performs well against that. And then against the Terms deck, Rogues is still slightly favored, not by a whole lot, but it's still favored. And I know if you look at what he ended up playing against, I don't know if he played a ton of Turns decks, but there certainly was some in the top 8 too. But I'm right there with you, Dafore, on that. I think there's always going to be a shell. I call it the you name the color and put adventures behind it, and you're going to have something, right? So.
yeah, but also like then maybe like Strixhaven cards will kick in, but I don't know. I'm unsure if they're like that much stronger than the adventure shell. So that's a bit of like problematic right now. But we will see what the Strixhaven brings to the table, because that might change stuff a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, given Keldheim here, where I actually thought Fortell could have been a little bit more. Like, it's just too slow for a lot of the things.
It basically lets you skip one turn, kinda, because like constructed is really like you need to do something like each turn, and then you're basically doing nothing on turn 2. Like let's say turn 2, but you can foretell whenever. But it's always costing you 2 mana. So
Yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see if there's something similar in Strixhaven, like Doomscar was super overhyped, and I've still been saying there's got to be a deck with Doomscar in there, right? Everyone loves a board wipe and loves some control magic, and maybe Strixhaven will do it, but I don't know if you saw Mythic Matt's Azor's Fable deck he was running for a while. I did cover that one, and I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't realize Into the Fable actually dodges a lot of the control stuff and can be used on the offensive and defensive. I was actually surprised that one didn't get picked up as much, but I think to your point, it's just the fact that you have to curve nicely in constructed, and any time that you're missing on curve, you're going to get penalized, and that's kind of how I look at it. And it gets harder to recover or gain board position depending on what kind of deck you're playing. So makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree.
So in terms of the limited landscape, then I think we're on the same page with the meta, because we both like say let's play turns. What advice do you have for the audience and the community? I know we chat a little bit, but would love to hear kind of your thoughts on limited, get a little bit more of insight on your experience. Obviously, like you said, this is what you stream. And that I've messaged you several times on tips and tricks. And I do apologize wholeheartly, because you gave me a whole list of things to do one for Kaldheim, and I failed to get to making the video. So I can't commit to everything. I do try to commit to a lot of things, and I do apologize, but love to hear. We'll consider this one your video on the limited stuff. So and for the record, everyone, he's hit number one on limited at least once that I know of, probably a few times. So again, our resident expert when it comes to limited. So what would you like to share here on that, my friend?
Well, it's really hard to start with limited, because I think people actually do a lot of mistakes. I don't want to get too cocky or anything with this, but I like to approach limited, and also I got this from, I think Martin Yuza said it somewhere, even wrote it somewhere. But I remember I just this cemented this in my brain. It's all you need in limit is basically a curve, tricks, and removal, and you don't need anything. This should be your basic. Always when you draft, you just start with that, and this is gonna win you games. You don't need rares. You don't you just need 2-drop, 3-drop. Trick removal, and that's gonna win you games. So you should look at your deck when you're drafting and how to maximize that, so that your curve is that your curve stakes, that everything, you're basically building a deck, not picking strong cards. Obviously some cards are strong enough to pick, and earlier in the draft you should pick stronger cards over the curve, because you don't know how your curve is gonna look like. Mm-hmm. But pack 2, at the end of pack 2 and pack 3, you should really focus on getting maybe the 2-drop you're missing, maybe the removal you're missing, or let's say a splashing bomb that you don't even know you're gonna have the fixing for or something. So that's avoiding that temptation, and that stuff is so hard to do in limited, and you have to be really disciplined. Yeah, I mean I have some. I'm a nerd. I wrote it down. I preceded this so weird, but I wrote it down so I don't forget to say anything about this stuff. But you really some mistakes I really see people doing is that's the biggest one is first pick or second pick committing to a color. Let's say they pick a black removal and they get a red, I don't know, whatever, bombs past. I mean, that's already a signal if you get bomb past, but you should never commit really to those two picks, because what if your color isn't open and you basically open that pack, you didn't get it past. If you get it past, it's differently, obviously. You can read the signal and then go into that, but you can just ditch the first pick. Nothing wrong with that. You're gonna get rewarded if you're let's say pick a red black card, like we said, red card, and third pick you get a green, I don't know, best common pass. Like let's say that's the hunt of the week type of card. That's usually the best green common. That you should look at a signal and you should just move into green from that point, or just pick that card to have the potential to still be that color if it's open, because you're gonna get rewarded the whole draft, and that's like way better strategy than just committing. People are like, you get like what 45 cards the whole deck or something. So you can like not play 20 cards or something. So you can miss on like a pick or two, like easy. I had drafts where I actually changed the color in the second pack, and it worked fine. Like you still have one color to go with, and you're still grabbing the open color in the second pack. So you just replace the first, like, I don't know, you were in black, you just replace the black cards with the red cards, and that's it. And it should work. Like usually you get rewarded by this type of decisions.
How do you remove for players that commit early Dafore? How do you remove that bias? Like what got you into a mode of not committing and trying to stay open and navigating the draft like that? Like what do you think has allowed you?
How do you get out of this like mindset blockade or whatever?
Like, a little bit, yeah. Because I feel like me as a player, I'm like, oh, I like this one, or I'm gonna pull this one, and I always show up. I'm like, I'm gonna be the competitive guy, and obviously arenas changes things a little bit. Besides like in-person card value a little bit too, and I'm just always curious. I mean, obviously in the competitive scene, it's a little bit different too, but. What frame of mind, like how did you like overcome these kinds of things that you're providing advice on? Because I absolutely agree, and I'm certainly one to be like, ooh, I like that card.
It's basically like the mindset of forcing things, which is sometimes like can be a strategy as well, but you have to be aware of what others are drafting and what the good archetype you want to force is going to be, and if it's good enough to basically the downside is basically wrecking your own draft. So is it worth it or not? But yeah, like you just have, I mean, I don't know how else to do it, and just try to navigate differently each draft, like try different stuff, like then you get this feeling of when to actually switch the colors. But I'm usually the guy who needs to fail first and then learns. So I did it that way. I failed a lot at the beginning, but then I learned. And you get like now it's kind of easy to get a lot of drafts in because arena is a thing. So I don't know, just by playing, but also like not being stubborn on yourself. That's the biggest thing. If you're too stubborn, you never like you're just always taking that first pick and never change the color. You need to like try it. You need to try like even like sometimes you need to try to switch and pack 3 maybe. And if it doesn't work, you see that it's not working. But if it works, then you're gonna see it might be alright.
Yeah,
just by trying, I think you have to try and not be stubborn.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I in Keldheim drafts, I was super stubborn about snowlands for a long time. And like it's such a pain to draft them, so I'll be partly excited once it's gone to not have to be like, oh, dude, I should totally pick this snowland. But it's funny because I did one last night because I hate trying to craft some of the stuff for standard, and so I'm like, oh, I'm still missing packs. I got to go play, so I went and did that, and totally different strategy, still slightly rare draft. And I happened to get a few things I like, but I called it the 5-color snow pile. And I'm like just pulling and I ended up going like 4-3, 5-3, but I mean, it was like in bronze, but I think that makes a lot of sense to what you're saying of like, because that was my concern too, is like, I'm going to pull a bunch of these things together. I'll just pull some of the good stuff and we'll see if it sticks. And it ended up working out. And I think part of your advice there is, you're learning through trial and error, but as you navigate it more, you're naturally figuring out exactly what you already know, and it takes time. And I can imagine, like you said with I think it was the fight card for green, that when it's a common reprint or whatever, you recognize that in different sets, but like Keldheim, you got to totally change some of your draft patterns with the snows and things too. So that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, the funny thing is, in Kalheim, actually, 5 color was a thing. Like that was
I
an
know,
actual
I
archetype. Yeah, but it's actually kind of got me off guard because I have this perspective of how limited works, and I'm like, usually at the beginning of the set, I'm like, stick to 2 colors. Don't be too greedy. It's always gonna pay out. Like it's usually like this every
Yeah,
set.
yeah, I
But
agree.
but I drafted in this pod group before actually the set was released. We get to do some drafts on like some party programs and stuff. And like people were like, I was like, oh no, that dude is again drafting the 5 color jank. It's not gonna work out. But I always got beaten by 5 color snow, and then I actually realized it's a really good strategy in Kalheim. So that's also like one thing when you should not set yourself like you shouldn't be too stubborn on your opinion. Just sometimes it's wrong, sometimes it's not working. So that's the case where my like perspective wasn't correct there. Like, I mean, people actually figured it out for me.
Yeah, yeah. Just out of curiosity, like in terms of the pack pulls and stuff, when do you start pulling the snowlands? I think obviously in the competitive side it's different than some of the other things, but like typically when should you be pulling those? Because that was something I struggled with a little bit.
I like to look at the whole 5 color thing, or it's not even 5 color. It's basically green, blue, green, black, like basically green snow deck. I like to look at it as an archetype. So it's a bit more complicated because you have to know which cards uh, you want, or which cards are like the important cards for snow. And if you see that twirling, you look at that like let's say that archetype is like just a separate color pair or whatever, but it's basically like spread between 5 colors. So you just see when those cards are wheeling, then the snow is open, and if lands are wheeling, it's either people are picking the payoffs first for snow, and you're not gonna get the snowlands last pack, so you need to take them higher. I don't know, earlier, because last pack everyone is one who's in that archetype will want to grab the snowlands, or it's the other way around. But you have to recognize, it's a combination of both. You have to recognize, you have to know basically which cards are important for that archetype, and if those are reeling, usually the snow is going to be open, and then you just can maybe even gamble on the lands to come back or something last pack.
Yeah.
But yeah, just look at it from like an archetype perspective, which you have to learn, I guess, to or just draft a lot and see how the cards feel.
make some mistakes and you'll figure it out eventually, right? Oh, that's great. What other things? I know, like you said, you had a few things that you wanted to cover. Did anything else that you wanted to talk about on the limited stuff, or curious, what is your win rate when it comes to limited? I know you, again, from my perspective, I always see you killing it. So you're probably as close to infinite, I would say, that a lot of people get when it comes to limited. So like what's your win rates generally if you track it? And obviously I would assume it gets better over time depending on where the set is. And then we do get opportunities to draft some of the older sets, and obviously you talked about Throneville Drain, or I think Theros is there right now too. You can come back and still use some of these strategies. It's fun to kind of play again. But just any other thoughts there, Dafore?
Well, talking about the win rate, I usually track it with this, what's the untapped GG.
Oh, yep,
so I get like some actual numbers, but like I'm way better when the set comes. Like when the sets kick in, I get worse when other people learn it, because like everybody has the same knowledge. So I think I can utilize on like maybe knowing a bit more like at the beginning, or like just playing for longer. I think also like doing more limiter for longer than other people. So I get just basically a better like this common understanding of the format, and then there I get the most percentage in, I think. And also when the set comes back, like you said it, because some people didn't draft it back then, and you did, so you get like more win percentage. But I don't know about the numbers though. It's close to. It's probably between 60 and 70.
That's good though, man. That's good.
But that's like more top probably 65 or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and you're probably still getting better over time too. I mean, I was fortunate to hit. I use Untapped as well, and I have a link down below too for folks that want to use it. But I hit 70% in constructed in this last season. Yeah, it was insane. So and I made the MQ off of my mono red deck. I call it mine because I put Shadow Spear in it and everyone loves it. So, but aside from that, what I did want to ask though is do you feel like the path, because I get a lot of questions about this and people are always curious. I've seen a lot of debates. Do you feel like the path to an MQ is I don't want to say easier to get to in constructed, because I actually think it's harder to get there, or in limited.
It's harder
in limited, I think it's harder.
Okay.
But I think once you get there, I don't think you're moving as much in the ranks. But I've never done like the double mythic. I haven't made that a thing yet. I got like everyone else, too much going on. It's hard to focus on one thing, right? But I was curious on your thoughts on that, because I know a lot of people ask, do you feel like, that's a good path for folks? Obviously,
I think
go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, I think the system has a little flaw in there, especially in limited. Like you said, that you can kind of tank on the ranks, and like half of the field does that. So like I know even some streamers and stuff. I mean, it's nothing wrong with that. It's just the system is that way. Like they reach, I don't know, first 5 days they reach limited to mythic, and they are in like top 50 for sure. Like first 5 days you're gonna be in top 50.
Absolutely.
And then they don't play premier draft ever again this season, and they're gonna end up in like top 500.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
But that creates another problem that, like, for instance, if you want to reach number one after like 10 days in the season, it's just almost impossible, because you're gonna play all the 500, 700s or whatever that just got into mythic, or that are like trying to stay in the top 1200s for the qualification.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes it like way harder to get to number one like late in the season, in limited in particular, because constructed is always changing. Like constructed, you're like first one day, then you don't play for 3 days, and you're like in the percentage already or something like that. So constructed is different.
Yeah.
No, in limited, it's like people basically tanking the ranks, and that's it.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, is what the decay was like from hitting top 50 in limited versus constructed. So I did not know that. I appreciate you sharing, because I hit top 50 last month in day 5 for constructed, and I waited. So I did a test to see how long I could just stay in the top 1500 before I got to the percent rank. And it was like 10 days. So it was about 100.
You stayed, and okay.
Yeah, it was about 100 a day.
I thought this was moving faster, but to be honest, I haven't tried hard constructed for like, I don't know, a few months now. So
well, it does move faster, and it's certainly, the way I look at it is, as the community grows, as there's more players, just like you'll find probably over time in limited too, as there's more players that think that that's the path, it becomes more competitive, and the decay is gonna increase. The biggest one for constructed though is, and I don't know if it's the same in limited, is the last kind of like 6 to 12 hours. It's like huge swings. So like I had the last 2-3 times I made MQF constructed, I was like 1 win, and you jumped like 500 places. It was like weird. So but I was at a 70% win rate, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I've heard, monthly boxing, and then, your lifetime box as your MMR, whatever they call it. But it's good to know that I think from your perspective, in limited as a player, if you put in the time, if you put in the effort, if you're willing to fail, like you said, and there's a path there, absolutely. That could be, I don't want to say again easier, right? But if you get there, you have an opportunity to kind of, and I don't want to say sit, because that's to me it's a strategy, right? Is if you want to do it,
It's more abusable maybe in limited, kind of like
there
if
you
you
go.
know the system, but you have to really. I mean, like five. Like some people just don't reach mythic in like 5 days or something like earlier in the season. It's not that easy like in
It's
limited,
a ton of
because you
drafting, man.
basically go one up, one down, and that's it. Like basically in best of one. Plus you have to have good draft knowledge, kind of. So uh, it still rewards good players, I guess, but it just takes the like this competitive aspect like when people want to reach number one, which I often tried like after 10 days of in the season, but it just never happened. Like I had to do it like first 10 days or something.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like after it's such a grind.
Yeah. If
You
I
have to
ever
have like, I don't know, 20 win streak or something to even move.
if I ever go for number one, I think it will be try to do the zoomer method where you do it as soon as possible, even for constructed. I mean, any time that I've been, like I said, top 50, top 100, you get down ranked once, you lose once, you drop like
Yeah, then you
500
drop
spots.
it. Yeah.
So the penalization of going backwards is worse than than the drive to win and go up like 2 spots. So I totally get it. Any kind of final thoughts in terms of the limited stuff that you wanted to talk about, Dafore, at all? This was awesome. I mean, I learned a ton too. But just curious.
Like just this general like knowledge. I think that's really important, and we touched that a bit. Not really anything in particular. Just basically focus on making the deck before you focus on getting good cards, and early in the draft, like you said it. Yeah, you can focus more on getting the power, but then you need to fill the deck in. Don't get tempted. Basically, that's the art of limited. Like uh, this compromise between power level and consistency, and getting that together and staying open and stuff.
That's
I usually compare limited like as I associate it with like jamming in music. Like that's like kind of constructed as like you're making a song, you play it the whole way through. On the concert, you basically learn the song, but like limited is like jamming with your friends in music.
No, I love it, man. That's great. That's a great analogy right there. So I know we talked about some of the meta. We talked about obviously kind of your background in streaming that led to, obviously the conversation we had on limited. Any thoughts on kind of the Strixhaven stuff at all for you, or what you think? I know we touched on it a little bit with like the Foretell stuff, but any like key cards or archetypes or anything that you can think of, and I know that a lot of the users that follow my content know that I've still haven't had time to fully QA, but I have looked at the modal cards. I'm excited for the modal Planeswalker. I don't know if it's gonna be any good, but that I'm not gonna complain about getting a mythic Planeswalker that can do one or the other thing. So, or get 2 of them on the board with the same card, right? I love that with modals. So. Any thoughts there?
Models are great.
I love
They have
modals.
implemented, I guess, like creature planeswalkers now and stuff. So you can choose. Oh, it was Walkie was a creature planeswalker as well. I guess
Yeah,
we saw that already. Yeah. But they're getting more and more into like making modal planeswalkers a thing. I don't
yeah,
know. Like for constructed, I haven't really give any thought in Strixhaven, but I did bunch of drafts in Draft Sim and
yeah. So
stuff, and I think it's like that. It's like it has this similarity of any like guild based set. So you have to look which color pairs are there and which multicolored. So here we have like I don't know the name. I'll use old names. So Golgari is it, Boros. What else do we have? Orzo and one more. But whatever, you have to look at these color pairs and basically try to be in those colors first few picks, so you don't get into like Celestia because it's not a color pair. So you're not gonna get any strong cards which are multicolor cards.
That's
So
smart advice.
so like that's like good way to look at it. Like this is just like from the beginning, but I cannot really tell right now. It's too early to tell which color pair is the strongest or anything, because you just have to have more repetition, and I believe for that. But like just this guild base set, so that rings a bell there. And maybe like splashing is gonna be easier because there are there are this dual lands and stuff,
Yeah.
and they made it possible so you can combine two guilds together and stuff. So, but
Yeah.
you should still not overdo it with the splashing. Like usually it's correct. Take two colors, splash high impactful cards like removal or late game cards. You shouldn't splash like you shouldn't have a 2-drop in each of the colors. If you get what I mean, because
Yep.
like you're not gonna get
it's
you're not gonna
hoses
get
you.
like
Yep.
all the 3 colors consistently on turn 2 or something like that.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Now I'm gonna have to think about all the naming conventions if I gotta move off the Orzhov to all the magic schools.
I know that Izzet is Prismari. This one was
There you go,
easier for
Prismari.
me, but everything else I didn't remember.
Yeah, you got me worried now. Now I'm gonna be putting Orzhov or is it instead of Prismari, and I'll have to think about that.
Some people try to go smart on me in Discord, and then they always use the new names, and I have no clue what they're talking about. I always use the old ones.
I'm just gonna run Keldheim and Zendikar Rising decks, and then call them all the new school magic to see what people say.
You know that there were 3 color names, like in cons we had Sultai and stuff, but there were like prior to that, I think in Invasion there were different names for these 3 color combinations.
Yes,
nobody remembers them anymore.
Yeah, there's like a magic chart I look at actually for like 4 color names like Ink and a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
I did one on Cycle deck and I called it Boros to Ink because it's 4 colors and no one got it, so I'm like, all right, we can call it Jeskai then. So
I wonder if names will replace now the old ones, like because the Izzet and like the Ronika names were really stick to people. I think
so too.
They were maybe we're gonna get them replaced by Prismari and the new names. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing is it's been the Ravnica theme's been around a little bit longer. So to your point, like, are they trying to replace it? Who knows? I guess we'll find out. But maybe we'll have to be making videos with dual headers now. the new school Magic players and the old school.
Old schoolers, yeah, and one for the new.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing the thoughts on that. I'm excited for Strixhaven. I'm always a big fan of change. I think we'll see, as always, a lot of cool things. And in terms of the meta, my hope, as always, we've had Zendikar's Rising minus a few hiccups. And then obviously Keldheim was pretty seamless minus, some of the bugs and stuff on the client. But hopefully we get a healthy meta where we get to see a lot of decks, a lot of diversity. I think that's the funnest thing from a constructed side, and we'll check back in after you get some more games under your belt. And you probably got a bias right now that you don't want to share with us because you're going to be gunning for number 1, so I can't blame you. on what to play.
Have a bias for anything right now.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time. But any questions, Dafore, that you have for me, or anything else that you want to share with the community here about yourself? Obviously, I know we can see all your guitars and your music reference, but I don't want to pry too hard. But anything that you'd like to talk about or ask me as well?
Well, I haven't really thought of what to ask you. I just I don't know. I'm just like looking at your content a lot, like when you put it out sometimes, and I'm trying to like basically look at your videos, like how to improve my YouTube content and stuff. And I'm basically looking for like you're kind of like a bit of like a idol, or however you call it, from that perspective.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. Well, I
also look at other ones, but yours reflects so well with me because like we kind of started like almost at the same time, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
did more of Twitch thing, you did more of YouTube, but now I'm kind of trying to get into the YouTube thing, and I'm not like that insane of like an entertainer, so I'm trying to like get better at that part, and like also the editing stuff, and because like a lot of people don't realize how hard it is to actually like make a magic video, because like playing takes such a long time, it's kind of boring to watch, I mean, people just skip, like on YouTube you can skip the I don't know, the minutes or whatever, the seconds, and you can just get to the parts where you want to be, and that doesn't really help the YouTube logarithm that much. So you can it's hard to make shorter videos in Magic, I think, if you want to
Yeah.
show the gameplay. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And then the YouTube just doesn't highlight them and stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So
it's changed. The algorithms changed over time, absolutely, and I mean, it will continue to change is what they do, and I appreciate Dafore, I truly appreciate that. That was a really nice compliment that I can't thank you enough for. And my advice on the YouTube stuff, I think for myself, what I learned was a lot of I'll just say community coaching, people that comment on the videos or provide other insights, and some of it's just like you're drafting. You develop a personal bias to the way that you're developing some of your content, and not being open to what people say, or sometimes you do got to hold still on some of the things that you have, and knowing what the right blend is. Like you said, if you know something's open, or if you need to stick to something, you got to make those calls. Has been really helpful for me, and part of it, and that's why I was asking about the streaming stuff too, is you can't wait for perfection. You just got to jump in and do it. And if you go back and look at some of my older videos, I think they used to be much shorter, like you said. And what I thought people wanted to see wasn't necessarily what they wanted to see. And I think I evolved that over time into kind of a series that makes sense, and then evolved that into at least what I think I'm becoming a little bit more known for, like you talked about, the meta. And that was something to me that I recognized that we see a lot of decks, but what's that mean, or how's that fit in, or like you said, if you have I think we were chatting before about the SCG tournaments where you don't see a ton of historic stuff, so that you can't really gauge what's out there. And it's kind of, as we were talking before about the MQ prep, what deck, and right before we jumped on this, I was doing some Twitch streaming to prep, and I'll tell you what I went into thinking was, I don't know if I'm gonna play it. So everyone says you got a few days, but we'll figure it out. But that'd be my advice, is just I think you got, like, again, whatever personal brand that you want to develop, you focus on that, and then focus on just doing it. And I think where I'm at today relative to a year ago is that's just kind of became what it is and took a natural life of its own, right? And I appreciate you looking at my content to kind of figure out what that means for you. Any advice that you ever, questions, obviously here, and don't worry, because I'll be calling you up on the Twitch stuff. So, and I think they both work nicely hand in hand, by the way. I think the YouTube gives you an opportunity to kind of, I'll say, manage around the schedule a little bit more than Twitch does, but Twitch allows you to interact in a different way with your audience that I've grown a much larger appreciation for as an individual, and as someone that appreciates other content producers and streamers like yourself as a way to interact. So
yeah, that's funny because like that's what on my mind right now. Really, like maybe some might think that I think of like meta game like the whole week, but like I mostly think like how to basically improve my Twitch channel or something, or how to improve the YouTube or whatever. And then I have like some days off, of course, for like tournaments and stuff, and then I focus on the meta. But I think you might even be spending more time like. At this moment thinking about the meta, since you're like actually involved in that content more than I am currently. Like I usually just like try to use my past knowledge to bypass like some of the like meta things like that maybe other players are going through.
Yeah, and I would tell you just, I mean, if Omnath was still around or Oko, like, there wouldn't be much of a meta. So, I mean,
just jam that deck. I mean, you can still maneuver. Like that's the thing. Like you can still maneuver between playing the best deck, but then tune it to beat the same deck, the mirror. So that's also like one thing that's not as fun, but
yeah.
it is a thing.
Yeah, oh, it is absolutely like we talked about with Arnie, like piloting the rogues deck, and I would have picked turns going into it, and obviously it wasn't just standard; it was historic too with the Orzhov deck. So you gotta make a choice. You gotta recognize the choice and why you made that choice. Just like when you're drafting which card you're gonna pick, why you're picking it, versus I'm gonna pick this one because it's rare, right? So, but no, I appreciate that, Dafore. Any other kind of final thoughts here? I know it's early for you, and I got to be getting to sleep here because I got a big day too tomorrow. So
we both made a sacrifice. I guess on the time part there. You was supposed to be sleeping now, and I as well, but like on the other part, you should go to sleep. I should wake up, I guess, in an hour or two. But here we are.
Yeah,
funny.
Absolutely, man. I wholeheartedly, Dafore, appreciate you taking the time to check in with us, share your story, how you got into streaming, how you did the GP stuff. I didn't know that. That's really cool, man. How you've gotten into the top 8 a few times, and shared your insights between the meta discussion as well as some of these draft strategies. And I highly encourage everyone to check out your content, both the YouTube stuff and your streaming. I'll make sure that, like I've said, that all the links will be down below to Dafore, so you guys can interact with him as well. And happy to have you as part of this collaboration video today, my friend. So appreciate that. Any final thoughts from you, Dafore, before we close out here?
Yeah, thank you so much, man. Again for letting me hear. Like I think this was your second collab, right?
It was.
Or this is is your second collab, yeah. So like that's like a really an honor to be here, like one of the first in your channel before it explodes.
I appreciate that, my friend. Well, likewise to you. I'm thank you for coming, and now I think in close we'll both go back and get some sleep.
Yeah.
So, all right, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll see you again soon.